When the outdated tactics get left behind, it's time we stop. Marketers look around when your ranking's going down.
Hello, hello, hello. It's the Jim and Ann Show, and today's special guest needs really no introduction, but it is the Rand Fishkin, who is the co-founder and CEO of SparkToro. He's also the former founder and wizard and the voice of Moz, I'm sure you're all familiar with. He's an author of Lost and Founder. I absolutely love this book. He's kind of the most honest, open person I've ever known. He's the husband to Geraldine, who's everywhereist. And I just heard a rumor that you're a creative director for a video game project as well. So we'll have to hear about that today. But Rand, glad you're here with us today.
Yeah, thrilled to join you, Jim and Ann. Thanks for having me.
All right, Rand, let's just jump right into a couple of the questions that we have. Let me jump into one of them. What do you think today most SEOs aren't doing that they should be doing, or that they don't even know of, or that they're not focusing on enough? What are SEOs missing these days, do you think?
Well, let's see. I obviously am not an SEO anymore. Haven't been for a long time now, but my suspicion and sort of network suggests to me that lots of folks in SEO still don't think about the value of product and brand and how that often impacts search of all kinds. And I'll give you a brief, example there. I think that a lot of companies who've built up an extremely successful presence in search started with their brand and their product, and then built off the strength of having great stories to tell and a great brand positioning, as opposed to starting from, here's a list of keywords. How do I make content for the keywords? How do I get links to the content? How do I rank the content? And so my suspicion is that very tactical, down in the weeds thinking is still pervasive.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but SparkToro, most of the traffic that you're getting, I think I heard, was all branded traffic. You're not focused on keywords, you're focused on the brand. Yeah.
So weirdly enough, Jim, it's almost weird to say, on a show that probably reaches a lot of SEO folks, and I know you and Ann obviously do a lot of SEO, but I do none anymore. I haven't tried to get anything to rank in like 4 years. And I don't target keywords with my content, and I don't worry about where we are in Google. Would I like to someday be number one for audience research? Meh. It's fine. There's already more searches, or about the same number of searches, for SparkToro as there are for audience research. So, gosh, I kind of would rather just keep growing the search demand for SparkToro rather than trying to rank for all these keywords.
Gotcha.
But do you think it would work for every business out there?
No, but I think it probably works for the best ones, right? So if you are a brand that is creating a leading brand in your space could be a tiny local region and you sell, I don't know, sandwiches, or you are, a product leader in your space. Probably it's more worthwhile to pursue brand growth and get your brand name to become bigger than all of the unbranded search terms combined.
How do you do that, Rand?
Yeah. So, I mean, there are actually a lot of ways to go about it. I personally, I can't speak to every single one of them, right? There are certainly folks who would say you can do that through advertising. There are folks who could say that you could do that through promotions. There are folks who say you can do that with pricing or with PR. And I agree with all of those. There are certainly plenty of examples of brands who've done that well. I'm sure almost everyone in the SEO world has worked with brands that have built up their sort of brand strength and company strength long before they ever invested in SEO. And then they sort of go, oh, hey, maybe, let's go capture this other 20 or 30% of the unbranded search market now that we're a leader in this space. The one that's working really, really well for us right now, and the one that I think is a missed opportunity for a ton of folks, is essentially this: go find the sources of influence that are already powerful and popular with your audience. Podcasts, email newsletters, publications, journals, blogs, websites, events and conferences, webinars.
Man, do you happen to know a good tool that you could use to find those things that you just mentioned?
I have a long list for you of great tools.
I'm thinking Spark Toro.
Oh, I've heard of that one. That one sounds pretty good. Tell me about it, Jim.
Well, you could use it to find influencers. You can use it to find where the other websites that your target market is going to as well. So it's great to find the community of where your buyers might be paying attention to.
No, I mean, and this is essentially like, the power that I saw from some of the, as I was leaving Moz, my last, especially 2 or 3 years there, I was helping a bunch of other startups and friends and people in my network, and seeing the power of this. Oh gosh, it's so much more valuable when, we can get the 10 or 20 publications of whatever kind that our audience reads and pays attention to or watches to talk about us. And that builds up our sort of brand strength and gets people to try the product or, go check us out, as opposed to, we rank somewhere in the search results, even 1, 2, 3 for these sort of unbranded terms. And I was just seeing a ton of folks getting less value from the search rankings than they had historically, and more value from these other sources. I think that in a lot of areas where there's sophistication in the market already, what happens is that folks go, they might search for those unbranded terms, but then they're going to look for a brand they recognize. They're going to look for something they already know, like, and trust. And so, click-through rates reflect this. Clicks on ads reflect this. Zero-click searches reflect this. I got the sense that there was more to marketing than SEO. And so, we've been trying to do this with Spark Toro, essentially going to places where the world of our customers who are interested in sort of market research and audience research and, finding sources of influence, PR folks are a lot of our customers, marketing agencies, and then being present in those places. Like, how do I get that publication to feature me, to talk about us, to invite me on their show, to do a joint webinar, to cover our research, like whatever those things might be. Sometimes you pay them. That can work too.
But it looks like as well, you're talking about, in other words, you want to become the expert in your industry and known within your industry as one of the experts.
Yes. I mean, that's certainly one way to go about it, right? Expertise can do it, but it doesn't have to, right? I don't think anyone would say like, Airbnb in 2009 were experts at the vacation rentals market. Like that's not really what built their growth roadmap, right? And I don't think Balsamiq were the biggest experts in the world at wireframing. It was really just that everyone in those spaces were talking about those products and tools and referring people to them, and the founders and the marketers at those places were constantly finding new sources of influence in their field that reach their audience to talk about them.
Having a unique product definitely can help as well. Something that can stand out from the competitors.
It does boggle my mind. Like, okay, SEO example is this. I think this is a really good one. So back in, go back to 2012, let's say, right? And Anne and Jim, I'm sure you remember that 2012, maybe 2013, if you asked 100 SEO professionals, which SEO software do you use? You'd probably get like 60, 65 of them saying Moz, right? That was like, at the time, it was kind of the number one tool by a good margin, right? It was 3 or 4 times in terms of revenue and customers, almost anything else in the field. And if you go 5 years later to 2018, let's say, Moz was probably 15%, 20%, right? And SEMrush and Ahrefs were kind of vying for that top spot, and a lot of people use both of them. And what happened in between there? I don't think that was those folks outranked Moz. I think it was that the product was what stole the show. And I'll take full responsibility for the fact that I could not build an engineering team that delivered on product improvements, or a product team that could like execute. So I think product is super underrated in terms of building up your brand strength and your marketing strength. And yeah, I would invest in that before almost everything else these days.
Gotcha. It almost brings up another question. And of course, I've read the book. Like it really spoke to me, being, an owner of a small company as well. It was like it was written for me. But what are the questions? Software or services?
I mean, you can build a really beautiful, wonderful business in services. And in fact, I think it's a lot easier to start and maintain a services business. I think a product business has to be relatively extraordinary just to survive. And a services business, if you have a decent network and you can serve your particular customers well and solve their problems and be relatively trustworthy and deliver your work on time and on budget, do the things you promised, you can have a very successful services business. So to be totally honest, I'm obviously a product and software person. There's parts of the services business model that just make me fundamentally uncomfortable, mostly just the sales and client relationship side. And I don't like building up the team either. So for all these reasons, I'm not a great match for that. But that doesn't mean that's not right for a ton of people. And, geez, look at Internet Marketing Ninjas. Like, you've built something really extraordinary the past 20 years. It's amazing to watch.
Thank you. It's, we've always teetered on the tools as well. We have a whole internal suite of tools.
And for a little while
that are out there and free, but
yeah.
I was going to say, for a little while, should we take this and make it public and try and get into that market? And I'm kind of afraid that it would change our whole business model and change everything about us. But every day I think about it, geez, should we put all these tools for sale and go to a tool company? There's nothing better than residuals,
I mean, the weird truth is, it is quite hard to keep a subscriber to software at least as challenging as keeping a services client happy. And look,
you were services for years. I think I remember the first time you got on stage and you're like, we're not services anymore. And it was like, oh, wow, that's interesting. He's really being firm on that.
Well, so at the time, that was basically when I was pitching investors, going down to Silicon Valley and trying to raise money for Moz. One of the big pushbacks was, hey, you still have a little bit of a services business and we don't like to see that. And that's going to sort of disqualify you from this. And so I foolishly, in my opinion, actually, I think I would completely not do that again if I had it to do over. But yeah, essentially dropped it and tried to drop that from our positioning and all of that. We sort of sold our services businesses.
Well, when you have an index of the web, that's a pretty darn powerful thing that you have. So I can
especially back in the day when nobody else did, right?
When your ranking's going down.